Welcome again, all of our parishioners, CCS family from our school, as well as all of our friends watching this live streaming celebrations of the Lord's Last Supper. Please know that our prayers are with you throughout these days, especially when your living quarters are much tighter than normally, because your children occupying them 24/7, and you are being with each other much closer. May this closing in space allow you to find better strengthening of your families. On this night of the Lord's Supper, we truly enter into this new mysteries of God's love to all of humanity. In this night of the Last Supper, we also come to embrace the gift of Jesus Christ into our lives, especially for all of us who are Catholic Christians. Tonight we mark the three different aspects of our life as Catholic Christians. First is the institutions of the Holy Eucharist, that Jesus allowing us to receive his body and blood, and every time we come to celebrate the gift of the Holy Eucharist, where many of us are being deprived, not able to come to church, or maybe many of us have taken it for granted, the beauty and the mysteries. And the gift of the Eucharist come to all of us. And maybe during these days when we have been withdrawn from receiving the body and blood of Jesus, may this night be awakened in all of us, that very gift that Jesus gave to the apostles and now to our church. Second, this night also marks the gift of priesthood. That in the sacramental life of the church, that we all share in this priesthood of Jesus Christ in our baptism. That from the moment of birth, the church always encouraging every child who's born, newly born, to receive the gift of baptism, so that we too are consecrated in the life of Jesus Christ and share in his priesthood. But in our Catholic tradition, the church calls men particularly to serve and to become the instrument of God's sacramental life. The church calls men to let go of everything that in their own vulnerabilities, to recognize the humbleness that God called all of us to become that instrument, to celebrate the church sacramental life, the sacraments of the church. And third, tonight, through the washing of the feet, Jesus also invites all of us, whether we are believers or non-believers, we're called to live this commandment to love. And that commandment to love is to live out the call to serve. And tonight I want to share with you two perspectives as we come to recognize the gift of priesthood, the gift of the Holy Eucharist. First, do you remembering versus rejecting? Remembering your own cultures, your own traditions, your own life maybe of faith, or are you rejecting the tradition that being passed on to you, the cultures that being given to you by your parents, by your grandparents, or the faith that has been brought to you in childhood or to adulthood? Because tonight is about remembering what God has given to us. And in remembering that, we come to embrace and appreciate our life and our journey. So tonight we remember the Passover in the Old Testament, in the book of Exodus, how God led his people out of Egypt, and Moses become that great instrumental figure in leading God's people out of slavery and into finding the promised land. As we come to listen here at the end of this reading, this day shall be a memorial feast for you, which all your generations shall celebrate with pilgrimage to the Lord as a perpetual institution. As a perpetual institution. That is a call of remembering, not just a memories going in and out with a permanent memory. That being imprinted in you and in me and all of us and all of humanity to realize what God is inviting us to acknowledge. Remembering the hands of God bringing his people out of Egypt and the hands of God leading us to find in this journey what he calls it, a pilgrimage to the Lord. And we are all this pilgrimage together. And this pandemic too may be a reminder for all of us. We're all in this together. No one, and no one is invulnerable to this virus, to this infection. As I shared with you on Palm Sunday, this whole context of my belief versus my blasphemy. Because of my blasphemy, maybe sometime it create that whole cultures of invincibility and a cultures of invulnerability. But tonight is about remembering and remembering in the psyche of who we are, in the depth of who we are. And not to reject everything that God has given to us, your cultures has given to us, the traditions of our church has given to you and to me. But more importantly, the faith that we have in each other, more than ever, that we need to develop a stronger faith and not a doubt in each other's, not a fear in each other's, but a deeper sense of faith, because we remember we are all shared in one common humanity. We live in the same earth, we breathe the same air. May we participate in that same earth, in that same air, to fight for the end of this pandemic, where our church can be open again, our school can be open again. We can all go about our life again. Maybe never be the same, but at least we can see each other again, face to face, and no longer at a distance. This gift of remembering is so important that we need to let go of what that we want to reject. Pope Francis this morning, normally he celebrated Chrism Mass, where he gathers thousands of priests, bishops, and cardinals at St. Peter's. Because of the pandemic, that celebration did not take place until a later time. But these are the words he's saying to his brother priests. He said, I remember you in my heart at the altar of the Lord, as he proclaims here. We are all anointed by the Lord, Pope Francis said, anointed to make the Eucharist, anointed to serve. And that's what priesthood is. In our general priesthood, we have been anointed at baptism. And at priesthood, I have been anointed by my Archbishop. Both the palms of my hands have been anointed with holy oils of chrism, which we recognized early at the beginning of Mass. But how is this priesthood bring to you and to me in light of this pandemic? In light of this pandemic, we are called to be leaders. All of us are called to be leaders, and more importantly, civil, elected officials, church leaders. At all levels, we are called to be leaders. Parents, you are also directly are called to be leaders in your own home. And so what does it mean to be leaders during this moment of the pandemic? First, leaders should be a model of balance between rationality and empathy. That we need to use our reason to help other people to fight through the pandemic. We need to allow our empathy too, to realize that people are suffering. So it's not only a role of an elected officials, of politicians, but it's also a role of church leaders, also roles of parents, to realize to use your rationale to help to educate your children, to calm their fears, their anxiety, their frustration being at home, but maybe also to show that greater empathy. The next part of being a leader is during this time of pandemic, pay close attention without panicking. To place close attention without panicking. And that is such an important part, being a leader. We don't realize it, but every word that we say can create a whole panic in people crazily buying that we witnessed 2 weeks ago. People jumping and buying masks, buying sanitations, hand sanitizer in a way that we don't really need, even toilet paper. But that's the role of every leader, is to realize that during the pandemic, what we are called to be. And parents too, you are with your children 24/7 now. Can you create that environment for your children to be calm, to be comforted? And third, during this time of pandemic, leaders are called to raise assurance and not to dismiss the magnitude of the dangers of this pandemic. Because when we dismiss the danger of this pandemic, we will make things worse. And so that's what this call to be leaders during this pandemic. And called to be priesthood. Also to show this leadership in ever more so important. We cannot push this role of leadership to say, let the politicians, let the civil leaders do whatever they need to do. But we as church leaders, family leaders, we need to take part in being that voice for one another, being that voice of accountabilities for one another. And Pope Francis has become that great instrumental leader for me. Every morning when I wake up, I would read, what message is he saying to the world today? What message would he be saying to all of the people today? And what message would he be saying to me today as a priest? As we step further then in the second part of our journey to remembering and not to reject, the call to self-giving versus self-centeredness. Self-giving and not being self-centeredness. This call of self-giving is so important, and that's what it is to be for us as Catholic Christians, to celebrate the Mass of the Last Supper. John chapter 13 reminds us the symbolic in the washing of the feet. The washing of the feet in John's Gospel help us to see that God's love being portrayed in reality. Not just mere words, but in actions. God's love being in his life, in his love for all of us. He walked with us, he shared with us in our own sufferings. So this call of self-centeredness needs to be let go of. Even sometimes we really want to go back to that self-centeredness, but today, more than ever, can we be self-giving? And what self-giving look like for you and for me today? What does it look like for each one of your families today being self-giving? What does it look like for all of us living in this nation to be self-giving? Maybe to respect the instructions what civil leaders asking us to do, to keep that social distance of 6 feet apart, to keep that awareness that we can be transmitter of the virus without knowing it. To be self-giving, maybe to realize that I am not invulnerable. I too can be infected of the disease and pass the disease on to others. So Pope Francis this morning also reflect on those whole areas, what it means to be self-giving. He said here, the priests who have given their lives to Christ, the priests who are servants, remembering, especially Pope Francis said, more than 60 priests in Italy who have given their lives while serving the sick in hospitals, together with doctors and nurses in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. But he said here, so far more than 100 doctors have died in Italy in this work. He held them as saints next door. And that is the ultimate gift of self-giving. To be the saints next door. Who is your neighbor today? Maybe the saint next door are your friends who work in the frontline industry in this moment. Sometimes I keep talking about nurses and doctors and those who are in healthcare facilities. But there are other frontline people who work and who are also the saints next door. So let's go forward this night as Jesus said to the disciples here. In John chapter 13, he proclaims to all of us, unless I wash you, you will have no inheritance with me. Then Simon said to him, Master, then not only my feet, but my hands and my head as well. And Jesus said to him, whoever has bathed has no need except to have his feet washed, for he is clean all over. So you are clean, but not all. What a beautiful gift that is. None of us are completely self-giving. All of us. There is that part of self-centeredness in all of us. And he recognized that part of self-centeredness in all of us. But tonight we need to subdue that self-centeredness and become more self-giving. As Jesus proclaimed further here, do you realize what I have done for you? You call me teachers and masters, and rightly so, for indeed I am. If I therefore, the masters and teachers, have washed your feet, you ought to wash one another's feet. I have given you a model to follow, so that as I have done for you, so you should also do. Let us renew that commitment that we shall also do in our parish and cathedral chapels. We're encouraging each other to put on the new self, because we are all created in God's image and likeness. So by putting on the new self, we are called to do two things tonight. Remembering what God has done for us, and not to reject our cultures, our traditions, and our faith. Remembering to be self-giving and less self-centeredness. And that's what Jesus has done for us. Let us go and do likewise.